Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well today. My name is Ryan Habercorn. I supervise the admission department here at St. James School of Medicine. I want to thank everyone for attending today. I hope you find this informative as well as all of the other schools. A little bit about myself. Don't want to talk too much about myself, but I've been with the school now for almost 11 years. I love being able to help and guide students to their passion of medicine. For those of you who don't know, we are a Caribbean medical school, which allows students to practice in both the U.S. and Canada. And like I said, I've been here 11 years. I love being able to help and guide students to their passion of becoming a doctor. And when you see students, graduate across the stage that you help guide through the admissions process, it's truly rewarding and truly gratifying for me to be able to help individuals. So a couple of notes, we will address all questions at the very end. So if you enter a question during the presentation, we'll be sure to address that at the very end. And again, thanks everyone for attending today. So for those of you who don't know much about St. James School of Medicine, as I mentioned before, we are a Caribbean medical school. Been around it'd be 25 years next year, which is crazy to think. And I've been around for 11 of those 25 years. We got some really special announcements for our 25th anniversary next year. What really sets us apart is our mission statement. We're looking for motivated and passionate students, regardless of your age, your background, where you come from, et cetera. We're going to give you a fair opportunity. And I know we have a lot of Canadian students in here, which I think we all can agree that getting into a Canadian medical school is pretty tough. You have to have a specific GPA and a specific MCAT score. But like I said before, we truly give every student a fair opportunity. And doing this for so long, I've worked with so many students that have had non-traditional GPAs, non-traditional MCATs that have gotten through the program successfully. We actually just matched a 63-year-old student in a residency this year. So that goes to show that we don't care about your age. We looking for motivated and passionate students at the end of the day. The most important thing to note is our accreditations. Our accreditations allow students to practice in both the U.S., Canada, the U.K., and also various countries throughout the world. I would say maybe the top two or top three thing that why students choose our program are the small class sizes, anywhere from 25 to about 50 to 60 students per class. This is going to enable you that one-on-one time with your professors. And given how challenging and rigorous that medical school is, that pays great dividends for all students. Two campuses to choose from, which I'll talk a little bit later. We have Anguilla as well as St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As I mentioned before, accreditation is such a crucial component of the school that you choose, specifically if you want to practice in Canada. We have all the accreditations needed for students to be able to take the board exams, match for residency, and gain licensure in both the U.S. as well as Canada. That's ACCM as well as KMHP. These are the two biggest accrediting bodies in the Caribbean. Lastly, the ECFMG, the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates, that grants you to take the USMLE Step 1, Step 2, as well as Step 3. Just to kind of reiterate, there's a couple of slides on accreditation because I want to, reiterate how important that accreditation is. Again, our accreditations allow you to practice in the U.S. Also, the MCC, the Medical Council of Canada, recognize us as an accredited institution. The GMC, for those of you wanting to practice in the UK, you're able to take the PLAB exam, gain residency and licensure in the UK, and also the Caribbean Association of Medical Councils. That's a variety of different Caribbean countries, which allow our students to practice in those countries too. So I'm not sure what kind of audience we have in here. I'm assuming we have some students in high school, some students in university. This slide here is intended for students that are coming directly out of high school for our 5-year pathway pre-med/MD program. So for those of you, once you finish your high school diploma, you go directly into the 4 semesters of our pre-med program, which is done on the island of St. Vincent. Once you finish those first 4 semesters of pre-med, you go directly into the first 4 semesters of the MD program. Now, once you finish those 8 semesters, you do receive a Bachelor's of Health Science. So you do get a bachelor's degree coming directly out of high school, again, for the first 8 semesters. Now, once you finish those first 8 semesters, you go directly into our preparation course for the USMLE Step 1, which I'll talk a little bit about later. Once you finish that prep course, you'll go on to take the USMLE Step 1. From there, once you pass Step 1, you finish out your 80 weeks of clinical rotations. And then from there, once you finish the 5-year program, that allows you to match for residency. Once you finish residency, you're able to gain licensure in whichever country that you choose. It is a very condensed program. I think it's very beneficial for students directly out of high school. We don't give you summers off. You're going to school year round. So by finishing quicker, that allows you to start practicing sooner. We don't require any specific entrance exam. As I mentioned before, I know a lot of students that are applying to Canadian schools have taken the MCAT, which they're very competitive in terms of Canadian medical schools. So we don't require the MCAT. So just to kind of give you a brief overview of the program again. So for students that are coming directly out of college, we only require 90 college credits for students to start our MB program. So once you have those 90 credits or once you have a full degree, you go directly again into the first 5 semesters of the basic sciences. That's composed of the first 4 semesters of basic sciences. You have the last semester, which we talked about, is the preparation course for step 1. Once you finish those 5 semesters, you take the USMLE step 1 and then finish out your 80 weeks of clinical rotations. Once you finish your rotations, you'll take the USMLE step 2. And then from there, once you finish off your rotations, you'll start to apply for residency, which we help assist you with. As I mentioned, we're a small school here. You're getting help every step of the way. And specifically, once it's time for you to submit those residency applications, this is something that we help you with. So a couple things I mentioned before, what sets us apart here is our student-to-professor ratio. Like I said, we're a very small school here. You're going to have access to your professors before, during, and after classes. I will say one thing about our faculty, they're very passionate individuals. They want to pass off the knowledge that they have to future doctors like yourself. All of our faculty either hold a PhD, MD, or both. Majority of them have both of those degrees. Personalized education and mentorship. Before you get down to the islands, you will be given a mentor that you can reach out to. So if you're struggling in any way, you have opportunities to get that assistance. We do have tutoring services. Medical school, it's a very challenging program, right? So you're going to struggle at some point. So if you do struggle, the tutoring services are offered to you free of charge. Research. We're one of the few Caribbean schools to implement research both within the basic and clinical sciences. And what's really important during your time as a medical student is that you add to your resume as much as you can. So by having this research opportunity semesters 2 through 4 during your time on the islands, you have a chance to become a published author. And I can't reiterate it enough that the more that you add to your resume, the more opportunities that you're going to have for those residency interviews. So, and it's something that's if we want to pursue with publishing, you have a chance to become that published author, as I mentioned. Now, some of the most up-to-date 3D imaging technology that you can have during your time as a medical student, we have one on each campus, one on Anguilla, one on St. Vincent. These are $80,000 a piece. And like I said, it's the most up-to-date technology that you can have for your labs, of course. So there's a lot of schools out there, and I've been doing this a long time. There's a lot of schools out there that don't prepare you for the USMLE Step 1, which has never made sense to me. You want to make sure that you're well prepared to take the most important exam of your career during medical school, referring to the USMLE. So we have partnered with the MBME. So you do have to pass the MBME, which is a pre-qual exam for you to be able to go on and take Step 1. We don't want you going in blindly to take Step 1. We want to make sure that you're on the right path in order to pass it on the first attempt, because, that's the thing. If you fail Step 1 at any point, that's going to be an automatic red flag on your residency application, and it's going to be an uphill battle for you to match in a residency in the future. Now, with the MD5 semester, you're taking a diagnostic exam from day 1, which is going to really show and where your strengths and your weaknesses are, and we're going to tailor those weaknesses to a strength. Okay, so that's why students have done so well on Step 1 with us, is because we prepare them an entire semester. Now, I know we have a lot of Canadians in here, so you are able to take the MCCQE eventually during your 4th or 5th years, depending on which pathway that you choose. For those of you looking to take the PLAB exam to be able to practice in the UK, you can do so as well. And then any students who are looking to practice in India, you're able to take the FMGE as well. Just to kind of reiterate, again, it's an entire semester of prepping you for step one. We give you resources, things like you have various lectures by your professors. You have Q banks to former USMLE questions. There's various videos that you'll be watching, different review periods, tutoring services, which is free of charge for you. And also you have a Q&A during each day with your professors too. So this preparation course, like I said, we've got a lot of positive feedback. We recently switched from Kaplan to Amboss as of September of last year. I got a lot of positive feedback from the students. They're loving it. And that's why our step one pass rate is so relatively high, is because we prepare you that entire semester for it. So I know it's late November in Canada. It is late November here in Chicago. It's very cold. It snowed the other day. What better way to warm up than go to the Caribbean? Obviously, you're there to work hard and study, but it is a breath of fresh air. It's 85 degrees Fahrenheit every day, which would be 30 degrees Celsius, I believe. So it's very warm. A lot of our students take advantage of the beautiful weather there. Like I said, you're there to work hard and study, but you have to take advantage of what's your surroundings, the beaches, the various restaurants, and the different attractions that both islands have. Now, we haven't made a formal announcement yet. So I won't be talking much about our Anguilla location, because as it stands now, we are breaking ground on a $10 million project in St. Vincent. So eventually what's going to happen is we're going to merge locations to St. Vincent. So starting fall of next year, Anguilla will no longer be an option. So that's why I'm going to talk a little bit about the St. Vincent Island, which is down by the Barbados and Trinidad area. What's nice about, for those of you in Canada, there are direct flights from Toronto to St. Vincent. I believe it's 4 to 4.5 hours long. That direct flight is clutch. You know, sometimes you have to hop around islands in order to get to one specific island, but the direct flight is definitely bodes well for students for that direct flight. What I love most about St. Vincent, it's more that big city type feel. So if any of you in the Ontario area, specifically Toronto, it's more that big city type feel. It's 100,000 people. You'll have traffic backed up in the morning, and also traffic backed up, you know, once classes, school's out, and once people are off work. It's very mountainous. It's very green. It's very lush. If you're into the outdoors, it's a perfect spot for you. It has so much to offer. You know, I was just there a couple of months ago. I didn't want to leave. It's might be a little bit of a culture shock for those of you who haven't traveled outside Canada or whichever country that you're from, but we do help you with everything. We're going to help you with immigration, housing, you know, things to bring, island life, travel arrangements. We're going to help you with all that. Here's a picture of our campus, which divides the two busiest streets on the island of St. Vincent. So you see a lot of people walking around, see a lot of traffic. There's an Ace Hardware on the right-hand side there. There's a KFC to the very left of campus. So it's like you never left home. So it's a little bit different than the U.S. and Canada. But once you get in a routine, you get familiar with the lay of the land, you get organized, you know, you'll hit the ground running. Specifically what St. Vincent is known for, it's beautiful landscapes. I know all Caribbean islands are beautiful, but I have so many pictures on my phone from when I went there a couple of months ago. And that's the perk of my job. I get to go there usually once or twice a year to meet students for orientation, but also to take in the beautiful island and the scenic views that it offers. So just kind of went over a few of these already, but as I mentioned, St. Vincent is 100,000 people. We established St. Vincent in 2014. The location of campus is in Arnos Vale, 85 degrees Fahrenheit, as I said, 30 degrees Celsius. Currency, they do use the EC. However, you're able to use your debit and credit card, and also U.S. cash if you're coming from the U.S. Languages, you know, I get that question a lot. Everyone speaks English in St. Vincent. You have your island dialect, which is Creole. And then lastly, we recently built our third story on St. Vincent campus. But like I said, the main attraction is building that $10 million campus, which is available for pre-med starting September of next year. So for those of you who are graduating high school next year, you will be that first class in our brand new state-of-the-art facility in St. Vincent. So I get it. You know, going to the Caribbean, might be a little bit of a culture shock for you, but we're going to help you with everything in terms of transitioning to the island, immigration, housing, things to bring, island life, etc. We're going to help you with all of that. We have our admissions team, which I supervise the admissions department. We have our enrollment team. We have our assistant manager. We have our concierge on both islands to help assist you with with the transition. As I mentioned, it's very easy accessible from both the U.S. as well as Canada, along with various countries throughout the world. Immigration is very simple, just a matter of some documents which you have to submit to us here. We have a buddy program, which is very unique. We have current students that will reach out to you before classes start to ensure that, obviously I'm not a doctor, I haven't gone through the program, but it's nice to talk to someone that's actually gone through it. So that buddy program is a very nice feature that we have. And lastly, we have a concierge for housing. Olivia is in St. Vincent. We have a housing portal, which you'll be a part of, and you'll be able to choose which housing that you want. We've never had dorms. That could change here in the future with the brand new pre-med program that we implemented, but everything is off campus. Everything is fully furnished. Everything is very affordable. That's the thing. Everything is so cheap in St. Vincent. When I was there a couple of months ago, I ate like a king for very cheap every night, and lodging is the same aspect. It's very, very affordable, and it's also fully furnished too. As I mentioned, so if you do decide to apply and get accepted, we're going to help you with everything housing. I know we've never had dorms just because we never wanted to take business away from the landlords on the island. So that's a big reason why we have off-campus housing, which again is all fully furnished. And also close to campus, we have a bus service. If you find something that you really, really like and it's further away from campus, we have a bus service that'll pick you up from your apartment, drop you off back on campus, and vice versa once classes are over. So here's a picture outside our white coat ceremony, rather. Our white coat ceremony is celebrated after students finish the first 5 semesters of the MD program. It's a big celebration. Obviously, it's a huge monumental journey in your life to be able to complete those first grueling semesters of the MD program. So as you see here, a picture of a few of our students celebrating the white coat ceremony in St. Vincent, which is put on by the Student Government Association. So rotations is a big question that I get, especially from Canadian students. Your rotations are broken into cores and electives, okay? And at this point, once you start your rotations, you're doing everything that a U.S. and a Canadian medical student are doing. The only difference between a Canadian medical student and a St. James student is that you're learning those core sciences. You're learning that foundation of medicine. You're doing so on an island as opposed to Canada. But like I said, once you come back to the U.S., you're doing all of your rotation sites at our guaranteed Green Book approved ACGME accredited hospital, which are all teaching hospitals. That's important to note because there's a lot of schools out there that don't have guaranteed rotations for students. Okay. So once you pass step 1, you go directly into the 48 weeks of core rotations. You'll take the USMLE step 2 and finish off those 32 weeks of electives. A big question I get is, how am I graded during my clinical years? Well, first and foremost, it's your logbooks. It's how you interact with your patients. It's your interpersonal skills. It's your attitude. It's you being on time and doing those little things that add up to a lot. And of course, it's your knowledge of each rotation too regarding the shelf exam. All the hospital sites that we have, we're the only partner with them. So you're going to have personalized guidance every step of the way with your preceptor. And I think I had a student email me a couple of months ago that was just in awe of how great that our preceptors are and how on hands that they are, because they want to give you the best experience possible during your rotations. We've all heard the term, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And that's such a crucial component of your electives is making connections. Because the more people that can write you a letter of recommendation, the more people that can vouch for you during your time as a medical student, that's only going to benefit you for your residency application. So doing the little things add up to a lot, and those things get noticed. And we see a lot of our students match into residency where they rotated at. And that's a leg up on the competition for you because they know you individually as opposed to someone who's putting in a residency application. So it's really important to put your best foot forward, bring your A game every day, come early, stay late, and I guarantee you those little things will get noticed. So again, just to break down the rotations again. So once you pass step 1, you're going to go directly into the 48 weeks of core rotations. Now, I'm probably going to get some questions on where can I do rotations at? So your core rotations have to be done in either Chicago Texas, or West Virginia. There's no wiggle room around that. You have to do rotations in either one of those 3 spots for the cores. Now, for the elective rotations, there's flexibility there. So if you're looking to do any rotations in Canada, you can do up to 12 weeks of electives in Canada. Now, that being said, we don't have any guaranteed sites in Canada, but if you find a hospital that'll accept you, that's just a matter of paperwork, and that's something that our clinical team will help assist you with at that point. So we also have other sites that are spread throughout the U.S. Other than Chicago, Texas, West Virginia, Michigan, New York, Oklahoma, etc. We have our extensive list on our website. So I know I've said it a lot already, but I just want to make sure everyone's clear on the pathway of our program. Now, again, if you're coming straight out of high school, you do have to do the first 4 semesters of pre-med. But once you do the first 4 semesters of pre-med, everything is the same for everyone. You do the first 5 semesters, which is part of the MD program. That 5th and last semester is that prep course for the USMLE Step 1. Once you pass Step 1, you do the 5 semesters or 80 weeks of clinical rotations. In between that time, you'll be taking the USMLE Step 2. Now, once you pass Step 2 and you're finishing off your elective rotations, that's when you're going to start to apply for residency. There's that window for residency application, which is June to October of every year. So in between that time, you're going to be submitting your applications. And then from November, December, January, potentially February is when you do your interviews, whether it be virtual or in person, will depend on the hospital. But we have counselors, I mentioned before, we have counselors in our Chicago office to help assist you with matching in a residency. Because at the end of the day, the more students that we match in a residency, the more students that are successful in our program, the better it makes us look, right? So at the end of our end goal is to make sure that you get through the program successfully and you match for residency on your first attempt. So I will say, I think our marketing department does a really good job of highlighting our graduates and their success. This is our 2023 match. We had 80 total students match in a residency for 2023 with an 87% residency match rate, which is, well above the Caribbean average. So you see a lot of happy, a lot of de-stressed individuals that found out that they matched. And we had a contest. We actually had all of our students that match in a residency hold up a sign, and we picked a winner for a gift card. So now, for those of you who want any type of interaction with our graduates, we have a phenomenal YouTube page. We have a podcast that talks with graduates about their experiences, what they liked about St. James, and just their overall time with the program here. A couple of students I want to highlight here. We do bring in interns every year for our USMLE counselors, which you'll see in the middle here. Dr. Heckburn, Dr. Chaudhry, Dr. Kinchello, all of our USMLE counselors from 2 years ago, they all matched into residency. Dr. Amanda Ritchie on the bottom left, she matched into LSU School of Medicine, a dual program, ER and internal medicine. She was my student that started back in 2016. We still talk a lot. We email each other every now and again. So it's nice to have those connections with the students that I work with and just the overall students of the program in general. So most of you are probably here. You want to get more information on the program, but you specifically want to know how much is tuition. And I will say that probably a top 2 reason, maybe if not the top reason why students choose our program is because of the affordability. So as it stands now, we're the most affordable and accredited medical school in the Caribbean, which means you're coming out with less debt. And like I talked about before, we have those proper accreditations for you to be able to practice in the US, Canada, the UK, and also various countries. To give you an idea, to compare and contrast other medical schools, and trust me when I say there's a lot of great Caribbean schools out there. But to come out with $300,000 plus worth of debt, that's a huge burden and a lot of pressure for students to get that residency to start paying those loans off. So we've been around for 25 years. Our tuition has only increased 8% since we first started back in 1999. So that's what we pride ourselves on having, is that affordable education. Our CEO created St. James under the notion that he wanted an affordable education that allowed students to practice in the US and Canada, and that we would be a small school. So as you can see here, kind of speaks for itself, right? We're the most affordable and accredited school, which doesn't, downplay any of these other schools. But I think the smartest doctor would be the one that would want to come out with less debt. Now, with our tuition, I know, like I said, a lot of Canadians in here, so you are able to use your government aid. So whether you're from, British Columbia, Student Aid BC, or Ontario with OSAP, all of the provinces in Canada recognize us as an accredited institution. So you are able to use the government aid for our program. And also, too, if you're looking to use a line of credit, that is also an option as well. To break down the tuition per semester, for those of you, again, coming straight out of high school, our pre-med program is $6,500 per semester. Again, that's for the first 4 semesters. The basic science program, now you'll see a difference in Anguilla and St. Vincent because of Anguilla being a much smaller island. Everything just costs a little bit more. It costs more for us to do business on the island of Anguilla, which is why the increase. And then for the 5 semesters of the clinical sciences, you have $13,500 for those 5 semesters. So this is my last slide here. Admission requirements. And like I said before, what I love most about just how we view our applicants is we're not looking for a particular background or GPA or MCAT score. We're going to give you a fair opportunity. Whereas, again, a lot of Canadian schools might not look at you. Other Caribbean schools might not look at you. Being here for almost 11 years, I can tell you for a fact that we will give you a fair shot. So for those of you coming straight out of high school, completion of a secondary school, like I mentioned, high school, that is required to finish your high school diploma from a nationally recognized education board. Now, you must have been taught in English medium instruction, coursework in sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, and math. Most of you have, if not already, have completed that in high school. Volunteering and shadowing, research, it's not required. Just because I'm not sure how it is in Canada, but here in the U.S. since the pandemic, you might have to know someone to get some of those experiences. So it's never been required to have a specific amount of hours. I think it is important as a student that you involve yourself in that field with shadowing or volunteering at a doctor's office so you can get a feel of what an everyday life would be like as a doctor. Now, the documents that we do require, there's 4 in total that requires your application online, along with your resume, your essay, and a copy of your transcript. So, of course, your resume outlines your educational background, work history, if you have any extracurriculars, different clubs and organizations you've had affiliations with, and then lastly, any shadowing, research, or volunteering should be on the resume. My personal opinion, it's your essay is what's can really set yourself apart. Your essay outlines your passion for medicine, why you want to pursue this, what sets yourself apart, any personal stories you want to share. That also should be included in your essay, because at the end of the day, you're selling yourself on paper before we can hopefully potentially get you that interview. Now, the interview, that's our biggest focus here. So once your documents are submitted, these documents are assessed by your deans and professors on the islands. So best case, we get you an interview, which is done virtually. This interview is really going to allow you to sell yourself. It's a chance for you to set yourself apart and explain to the admissions committee why we should choose you over other applicants. And of course, on our end, it's a chance for us to see if you're a good fit for the program too. Like I said before, we're a small school, so we're very select on who we bring in per semester. So this interview really allows us to see if you're worthy of one of the few select spots that we have. So that's it. That's all I got. I want to thank everyone for attending this event this evening. I hope you found it informative. I believe they'll be sharing my contact information. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me via phone or email. You can text me. You can WhatsApp me, or whichever is easier for you. And whether you choose St. James or not, just be informed on every school. Make a pros and cons list. Any advice that I can give to you, make a pros and cons list of the pros of that school and the cons of that school, and kind of compare and contrast everyone to see what's the best fit for you. Because whether or not you choose St. James, I want you to be successful in the school that you choose. Becoming a doctor is the most well-renowned position that you can have, in my opinion, in the world. You're being able to help and heal others. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and we're going to open it up with questions here.
Yeah, thanks a ton. I definitely agree. We could always use more doctors in Canada, to be sure. So we do have several questions, and if anybody has any more, put them in the chat. We'll do our best to address them, and we'll take it top to bottom. So first off is about accreditations. How are they earned by med schools, and do accreditations ever expire?
Good question. So accreditations are earned. You have to apply for accreditation. Now, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the new rule starting next year. So by January of 2024, if a school isn't recognized by CAMHP or ACCM, those two accreditations that I talked about before, schools are going to lose their ECFMG certification. So what that means is if you lose your ECFMG certification, that forfeits you the right to take the board exams, which means you can't match into residency, which means you can't gain licensure. So yes, a school has to apply for accreditation, and a school is given a specific window. So for example, let's talk about St. James. So our ACCM accreditation is due for renewal in December of 2025. So what happens is in the summer of 2025, we'll bring down the accreditors to the island as well as to our core rotation sites in the U.S. And as long as everything checks out, which we know that it will because we know how important that it is, they will give us that extension of accreditation, which would be 3 years or 6 years. So we're going to be pushing pretty hard for the 6 years. If we don't get it, that would give us the 3 years, which would put us to December of 2028.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay. Next one, you mentioned residency. It segues here. How does the residency matching work? Do we have to find our own placements?
Yeah. So in terms of matching for residency, I kind of touched on it earlier. So you have a window to apply for residency, which is June to October. So once you pass the USMLE step 2 and you're working on the remaining 32 weeks of your elective rotations, that's when you're going to start to apply, as long as it's within that window of June to October. So from June to October, you're going to be submitting your residency applications. Okay. And then from there, once that period ends, you have your interviews, whether they be in person or virtual, is up to the actual hospital. So November, December, January, and probably February, February might not be, you might have interviews, but that's when you're going to be interviewing. And then match day, of course, is March of every year where you find out if you match in the residency or not. So that's just kind of a brief overview of how the matching process works. Now, you might have a follow-up question is, what if I don't match in a residency the first time around? Unfortunately, it happens. It happens to U.S. students. It happens to Caribbean students. It happens everywhere. So it's important to note that if you don't match in a residency your first time around, you keep your resume active, because you're going to be that downtime, right, of when you start to apply again and when you actually have your interviews. And their biggest question to you is, what have you been doing since you found out you didn't match in a residency? And keeping your resume active is the most important factor. So you still have your MD, right? You can do research, you can teach, you can do various things with your MD. So again, important to keep your resume active, during that downtime.
Appreciate the follow-up. That's good advice. Here's a kind of fun, lighter one. What's the coldest it gets in the Caribbean?
It doesn't. It does not get cold at all in the Caribbean. It's like 20 degrees Fahrenheit here. I'm not sure how much that would be in Celsius, but yeah, it's 80 to 85 degrees, which would be 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. It's very, very warm. In St. Vincent specifically, it gets very humid since it's a little bit closer to the equator, but you don't have to worry about any cold weather. Now you will have to worry about the cold weather in our campus. That we run the air conditioners 24/7, so we even had students wear hoodies to class because the room gets that cold because it's so hot out. So we keep the rooms chilled. But yeah, no worries about any type of cold weather in the Caribbean.
Can certainly appreciate that from chilly Toronto today. Okay, a few more while we have some time. How many Canadian students do you typically get each year? Is it fairly consistent? Is it varied?
Yeah, typically for every 4 students, we have 1 Canadian student. So our total student body right now is at about 22%. And I think a big reason for that, you mentioned the weather, change of scenery from Canada. And that's not the reason why you choose a Caribbean school, but it's definitely a perk of that. But like I said before, Canadian medical schools are very strict to get into. It's very difficult. So you can still pursue that path, but you're going to need a really high MCAT score. You're going to need a really high GPA. And some of our more successful students have come from Canada. I love working with Canadian students. I feel that Canadian students are very dedicated and they're very driven individuals. And kind of mentioned earlier, there is a lack of doctors in Canada. And I know a lot of students want to go back to those rural areas to practice in those areas where, doctors, you have to drive, hours to get to one. But yeah.
Thanks. We definitely do need that. So here's sort of related, maybe. What factors should we be thinking about when comparing Caribbean med schools?
I mean, that's a personal preference, to be frank with you. I think choosing a school that's going to get you to where you want to go. Like I said before, the highlights of our program is we're a small school. It's a family type atmosphere. Your professors are going to know your names in the first couple of weeks. And coming from someone who's done this for almost 11 years, a lot of these bigger schools, and again, they're great schools, but they treat students like a number and not a name. And you're in a class full of 500 people, and you're not able to get that one-on-one attention. But I think resources for the student, and I think cost is such a huge thing too. To come out with, that amount of debt is, like I said, it's a pressure, it's a burden for you to start paying off those loans. We're obviously residency success. I'll just kind of mention this question here too. We have what is the job rate after residency, after graduating rather? So I think that's also important to note in your factor of the school that you choose. Our match rate for this year was 87%. We had 80 total students match into residency. And I mentioned before, you're never going to see a very extensive list with our matches because we're a small school. We're not going to have 200, 300, 400 matches per year because we don't bring in that many students per semester and per year. So resources, a graduate success, getting you to where you want to go. Preparation for the USMLE, I think, is also a big component. I work with a lot of transfer students coming from other Caribbean schools that they dismiss you after failing the comp exam because the fact of the matter is a lot of these bigger schools, they don't have enough spots for rotations, so they have to weed students out. And that's me being honest. I've been doing this a long time, so I know how it works with a lot of these bigger schools. So choosing a school that gives you the best opportunity to be successful, I guess, in short, as well as the other kind of points that I mentioned there.
Appreciate that. Thanks. We've got a couple of more minutes and a couple of more questions. This one, is there a specific area of medicine that St. James specializes in?
To be honest with you, most Caribbean schools, you're going to see the top two matches is internal medicine and family medicine, right? Specifically with us, you have family medicine, internal medicine, surgery, neurology, pediatrics. Those are the top 5 specialties that our students are matching into. And what it boils down to, so if you're looking for something like anesthesia or dermatology or neurology or surgery, some of these more competitive specialties, you have to have a better application. That's just the fact of the matter. So, for example, if you're looking for a really competitive specialty, right, and your step 2 score is let's say a 220. A 220, it's not a bad score, but to get some of those more competitive specialties, you have to be realistic at that point. And there's always loopholes through this too. You can always get a match initially, even though it's not the specialty that it's not your first choice. You can always get a fellowship afterwards. And this fellowship allows you to subspecialize. So you get that initial residency, let's say family medicine, right? Then you subspecialize to get a surgery licensure. So you can always fall back on that fellowship after you get that initial residency, because at that point, you're going to know a lot of people. And like I said before, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's a true factor in medical schools, especially the Caribbean. The more people that can vouch for you, the more letters of recommendation that you can get, the better off that you're going to be, especially if you want to get that fellowship after the initial residency.
Beauty. Thanks. Last one. I put a link in the chat to the booth as well if anyone has further questions after the session concludes, which we'll do in just a moment. But final question here is an easy one. Can you apply if you went to a private high school in Ontario?
Yep. Yeah. So as long as you have a high school diploma, that's all that matters. So, and it's a pretty quick admissions process too. So if there's anyone interested in applying, once you submit all your documents, we'll know within about a week or so if we want to take the next step with you. It's that quick of a process. I meet with the admissions committee several times a day. They meet with one another several times a day. So that's how we're able to get a pretty quick decision.
Beauty, that's it for the chat for now. Then, Ryan, thanks for your time. Any other parting words before we let you go?
Yeah, like I said, whether you choose St. James or not, just be informed on the school that you choose. The first question I would ask is accreditation. It's such a crucial thing going forward, especially starting January of next year. And if you truly want to practice in Canada or the US, you have to have those accreditations. So if you're getting different feelers out there for other schools, that's the first question you have to ask is, what is your accreditation? How long is it good till? What are the different ways that you're going to maintain that accreditation? So, but yeah, whether you choose us or not, good luck in your future. We hope at St. James. I hope to see your application and documentation so I can help and guide you and eventually meet you at graduation when you walk across stage. So,
thanks very much for your time and expertise. Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you, Logan. I appreciate you.